in the world today, especially, where there's so much strife, so much fear, dread, worry, uncertainty on pretty much all levels. Parents are worried about the well-being, the education, something even less important than their health, of course, but as to how it's going to turn out for their children. Their health, obviously, their social, emotional, psychological well-being, the family, work, how to pay rent, the amount of struggles that humanity in most countries in the world today, developed or so-called developed and undeveloped, the blow has been hard, and it continues to be so. So there's a lot of fear on an individual level and collectively as a population. Now, more than ever, I feel the need for people to come back to the true sense of what a refuge is. So far it's been our youth, our skin, our health, our well-being, our friends, our tight-knit circles, our families, our jobs, our house, all of which, and many other things I'm sure, that we've considered as the very thing that gives meaning to us, to individuals, is ultimately pointless, meaningless, and therefore painful. And that's what the Buddha called dukkha. Anything that is conditioned by the five aggregates, the khandhas, is bound. Anything that is conditioned based on other conditions, in order for it to exist, to be, at this point in time, is dependent on conditions. And once any of these conditions, any one of them even, is lacking, the whole thing falls apart. So now, not just one, but many of these things, many of these phenomena have been failing us. And they can only fail us when they had been, at one point or another, sources of refuge for us. Because that's what society has been feeding our brain, our emotions. Buy this, get this, fall in love with this, aspire to become this, to be this, etc., 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 to have this, right? And now we're seeing it's just a lie, because you cannot put that as a source of refuge for you, because it's not a shelter, it's not a place of solace, comfort. It is not something that is dependable. Now, a long time ago, 2,600 years ago approximately, people used to come with similar concerns and worries. So many people had lost different things that they had put their source of as their source of refuge. And for them, the Buddha would encourage, if they came and liked what he was teaching and they were moved by his teachings and they wanted to follow it, the Buddha would then make a suggestion for them to use the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha as their source of refuge. Now, I've talked about the three, or the triple gem, the three jewels, the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, in different places, in different talks, but I feel the need to mention the fourth, the Devas, divine beings. Some cultures might call them angels. These are not aliens, they're not extraterrestrials, they're Devas. They live on a higher plane of existence. And there's several layers of higher existences, higher realms. The shortest lifespan, the one on top of us, is about 9 million years, human years. I find that oftentimes, because of all this turmoil going on in the world, many people have forgotten. Because it's like a quicksand. It's muddy. It pulls you in. This sense of uncertainty, these worries that they keep feeding us, keep feeding into the subconscious mind, attacking the person's integrity, of some sanity that's left. Even that is going out the door. So it's indispensable, it's absolutely 100% necessary for us to have a source of refuge. Not in who's the president, who's going to be the president, who is now the president, or how the economic situation is going to be in the world. They're not. It's like, no. All those are conditioned. There's a higher source of refuge. And other than the triple gem, as I mentioned, I feel the need to speak a little bit about the Devas, which oftentimes are completely ignored in this secular society that we're living in. But they're very much real. And these realms are there. These heavenly realms are there. And many Devas are very much engaged in protecting this planet, its resources, its biodiversity, as best as possible. But they also intervene, they also protect us in different ways. They support us, especially practitioners. Especially those people who look at life the way I have been describing, seeing the conditionality of these other phenomena that we think of as our resources. So for you, the jig is up. For you, do you actually know that this is a mirage that you cannot put much credence into? So your eyes are wider, your understanding is deeper. You have penetrative wisdom, and they highly respond to that. And if your heart is beating with metta, loving kindness, compassion, or karuna, mudita, or altruistic joy, or upekkha, equanimity, they especially gravitate towards you, because you yourself can become a refuge for them as well. For it's like an oasis, because our planet actually is like a garbage can for them, because they're on such a higher frequency of existence. Your eyes have not seen beauty like that. And many people who have near-death experiences or die clinically for some time, majority of the time, Not all the time, of course, but many people, I would say, from what I've seen, I've read, the research being done today, seriously, in this field, clearly indicates that these people have been having a complete 180 type of experience compared to where they were prior to their death. Meaning, they were completely distraught, bewildered, confused, in sorrow, and they had a car accident, something happened, or they were having an operation, and they just go, flatline, and they die. And as the doctors and the physicians are conducting CPR and trying to resuscitate, they see the body, their own bodies. They see the separation, but something interesting also happens. There is a sense of safety, security, and a sense of it's okay. It's okay. Suddenly, as if they just flipped a switch or turned a page. The previous chapters is right there looking at them, dead, a cold body, their own body. But now they have a hard time identifying themselves as this dead body because all of a sudden they feel the warmth, this embrace of higher beings around them, this joy that comes in. And every single one of these articles or reports that I've come across where a person has felt that way and they're somehow told or sent back, in a sense, as if it's not their time yet, there's this sense of melancholy, this sadness. But their lives have changed. Even though they're back, even though now they are inhabiting this broken body, no longer able to be, floating or whatever, like an angel or a deva, their lives have changed. Their whole worldview, their paradigm is shifted completely, and no one can convince them otherwise. Why? Because they saw something that they hadn't. They witnessed it, they experienced it. Now, when a person is taking, let's say, the 3 refuges, and for them it didn't do the work, in a sense. They don't have that strong of a faith. They don't have that sense of relatability, perhaps, to either the Buddha, the teachings, the Dhamma, or the Sangha, the members of the enlightened community, not just bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. So if the person doesn't resonate with these 3 jewels, the Buddha gave the other option of having the Devas, thinking of the Devas. And if the person can just for a millisecond think, ponder, direct their mind towards an other reality that exists, other than this, where there is a much stronger sense of certainty, where there is a much more reliable sense of safety, where there is beauty, where there is kindness and love and warmth, compassion, understanding, softness, harmony. Already these words, when we say them out loud, there's a sense of peace that comes to the mind. And that is the beginning of a sense of refuge. Now, for a person who's actually gone through the near-death experience, it's much more real than that. They don't have to struggle to visualize. They just have to remember. That's a luxury that most people don't have. But that doesn't mean that we cannot tap into that, because the Buddha used it as the 4th refuge. He also used, by the way, the person's virtues. Also, he used, I'm considering the Devas now as the 4th, but people might argue and say, well, dana, or generosity, remembering one's own acts of generosity, is a tremendous source of refuge. Absolutely. So is a person's keeping of a virtuous behavior, actions committed that are completely sound, morally sound, virtuous. They protect themselves, and especially they protect the world around them by not breaking the 5 precepts. Not to kill intentionally, not to take anything that is not given, not to have any kind of sensual or sexual misconduct, not to use false speech to gain something, not to gossip, not to slander, not to have harsh speech, hurt somebody through words, or not to engage in frivolous or idle speech, and not to engage in taking intoxicants that delude the mind. So the person keeping these precepts already, it has another refuge in a sense, because they can remember. Now the problem is we usually slip on the slippery slope of, well, look around you. Worry, fear, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Everybody's holding on to the edge of their seat and waiting for the other shoe to drop. We don't have to be going through that. So we have several refuges that we can use. And at this point, because of what we were discussing earlier, I think it is necessary for us to bring to mind the Devas. This is not the only reality. And there's a lot of suffering here, but this does not have to be the only reality, because sooner or later we're going to leave this planet. We're going to leave this body, and we're going to open our eyes somewhere else. And there are very powerful beings in this so-called somewhere else. And they are very much around us many times, often rather. And they put an effort to come, like I was saying earlier, how metaphorically it might even seem as a garbage tank, or, for them, because of what beauties they're surrounded by. So we can gaze away from this messed up situation. Yes, we need to try to make things right here, but this is not all there is. That's what I'm trying to say, and that's what the Buddha was encouraging people. To not be fixated, tunnel visioned into thinking that this is the end. No, it's not. So bring to mind the Devas. They're graceful, beautiful, strong, powerful. Many, 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 countless are the lovers of Dhamma. They are practitioners, in fact, of the Dhamma, because only yesterday or half an hour ago, for them, they were sitting at the feet of Lord Buddha himself. Because thousands of our years pass by so quickly for them, like seconds. So 2,600 years ago the Buddha died, but it was like a few seconds or hours ago, maybe minutes ago for them. But they thrive, many of them thrive on the Dhamma. And by you keeping in your heart the Dhamma alive, they find you as an oasis. And they love to come to the garbage can, because there's a jewel there. And that is your faith in the Dhamma. That is your faith in the Devas. So please do not fret, do not worry. Redirect your attention to something a lot more substantial. And yeah, I hope this encourages listeners.